Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, we are going to be talking about the major correction that took place yesterday on Bitcoin. We're going to be talking about where the bottom is and whether or not Bitcoin can hold the bullish September that we have so far. Bitcoin needs to set a bottom above $107,000 so that we can have confidence that October is going to be extremely bullish on Bitcoin. Most people agree that a bullish Q4 is coming, but that means we've got to find a strong bottom somewhere. Where is that bottom? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. On a bit of an emotional note, if you are freaked out, if you are scared right now, I think you found the right video, because hopefully we're going to be able to give you some kind of confidence about where Bitcoin is going to be going over the next few weeks and over the next few months so that you don't get shaken out. These are bear traps. Sorry, these are bull traps. We do not want us bulls who have been holding for the duration of this bull market to be exiting before the bull market is actually over. The bull market is not over, and I'm going to show you why in today's video. So, without much further ado, let's get started. Bitcoin has had a relatively large correction over the last week and a half. Back here on the day that Jerome Powell announced the Federal Reserve rate cut of 0.25%, 25 basis points, and announced that we would likely be seeing several more, we have seen a major correction on Bitcoin. This is something that we warned about, although I will be honest, I did not expect the correction to be this deep. We expected Bitcoin to drop down to about 112 and then bounce. Bitcoin, however, did not bounce there, and we've been seeing a pretty large correction ever since about Tuesday. And this has led some people to be very concerned about the integrity of the bull market in general. I want to kind of address that fear. And the first thing we want to talk about here is the actual long-term uptrend on the regular chart. The long-term uptrend that is underpinning this Bitcoin bull market is right here. This uptrend, as we speak, sits at $88,000. In other words, Bitcoin could very easily drop all the way back down to $88,000 to $90,000, bounce, and still be in a bull market. That would almost certainly invalidate the four-year halving cycle at that point, because such a movement down to this uptrending level of support and then a major bounce would likely cause Bitcoin not to rally up to $150,000 to $160,000 until almost, spring of next year. And so that would mean that the four-year halving cycle is invalidated. So the very first thing I want to point out to you is that if we lose some of these shorter-term levels that we're about to talk about, honestly, in my opinion, good. I don't like the four-year halving cycle. Maybe you do. I'm not the biggest fan. I don't really like having Bitcoin drop 75 or 80%. I don't think that it's very good for the health of the space. So in the short term, it seems terrifying, Bitcoin dropping down to $88,000 to $90,000. But you know just as well as I do that BlackRock, all of these 401k plans, the ETFs, strategy, you, me, retail around the world would buy the crap out of Bitcoin at $90,000. I would buy so much Bitcoin at $90,000. I'm sure you would too. So if Bitcoin did drop back down to $90,000, especially while, as we've been talking about all week, gold is going absolutely parabolic, of course that would be a once-in-a-generation buying opportunity if Bitcoin ever did manage somehow to drop beneath $100,000. So the reason that I mention this is because one of the things I've learned about success over the years is that fear is the opposite of faith. And if you're going to succeed in life, you have to have some vision, and you have to have confidence, and yes, to some degree, even faith that it's going to happen. And fear is it's kind of the Achilles heel of that. So the way that you conquer fear is this: go to the worst case scenario. Go to the worst case scenario. Swallow it, accept it, learn to be okay with it. In my book, the worst case scenario for Bitcoin right now, and I'm talking, this is probably not going to happen. This is kind of like you walking out your front door and getting hit by a bus, worst case scenario. It's probably not going to happen, right? Worst case scenario is Bitcoin drops back down here below 100,000 down to this uptrend, or it takes its sweet time and we drop down to $100,000 and we basically validate the uptrend, sometime in like December or January, and we have just a bloody Q4. Is that going to happen? Most likely not. Could it happen because gold is taking the spotlight? Yeah, it could happen. And at the end of the day, if that did happen, if this quote-unquote worst-case scenario happened, this would give gold enough time to top out. Don't forget, guys, gold on the monthly chart has the most overextended RSI, most overbought RSI that it has had since 1980. The last time that gold went up here in 1980, we immediately saw a massive crash on RSI. Right? The market completely fell apart. Even these times when gold ran very hot, right after Bretton Woods in 1971, we saw major corrections on gold, 3 of them, right? So a major correction on gold is around the corner. I'm not saying that gold's not going to do well. I actually think within the next 10 years, gold will be trading at $10,000 an ounce. I think it's actually a decent investment if you're trying to expand your investments into hard money assets. Not anything wrong with it at all. I think it's a great asset, but it is going to have a correction. And when it does, it's going to lead to a major rally on Bitcoin. So let's say worst case scenario. Worst case scenario here, Bitcoin ends up having a bad Q4, drops down to $90,000 or $100,000, which again, I don't think is going to happen. That gives time for gold to top out, crash, and then all of a sudden, people that sold that gold crash, the ones that actually started it by selling the top up at, let's say, maybe $4,000 an ounce, that's going to be a big even level for gold. Where's all that money going to go? Well, these are people that are investing in hard assets. What's another hard asset? By the way, if Bitcoin were to drop down to 90, it'd be a hard asset that's down 22% from all-time high, while having some of the most bullish fundamental developments in the entire history of its 16-year lifespan take place over the last 12 months. So, of course, this would be a generational buying opportunity. Makes no sense fundamentally whatsoever for us to go into a bear market from that point in time. The only way it makes sense for us to go into a bear market is if Bitcoin just blasts off to $200,000 to $250,000 and then it corrects back down to a fair market value of 80 to 120 or something. That would make sense, but then again, at that point, you're just revisiting the current levels during the bear market. The bear market comes because the blow-off top happens. Blow-off top hasn't happened. Why should we have an 80% bear market when we haven't had the blow-off top? You need to remember, this last bear market was predicated on a lot of different events, such as a massive amount of inflation that was pulling people away from buying Bitcoin because Bitcoin was still a nascent investment. People were scared of Bitcoin. They didn't realize that it was the inflation hedge that they were looking for. So they were scared of inflation, so they parked their money in gold and they parked their money in stocks. And so stocks rallied and Bitcoin got left behind. At the same time, we saw the war in Ukraine begin right here. The 4-year halving cycle was a very well-established idea at this point in time. And so this bear market was not something that we are looking at replicating right now. Because at the end of the day, this 1 year, 77% drawdown had a lot to do with fundamentals and geopolitics. We also had a very hostile regime in Washington that was very much against the cryptocurrency market. We have to stop comparing cycles based on just what year things are taking place in. There were a lot of different variables going on. Bitcoin, for example, over here got very much overbought. Ran 1,000% in 150 days. So, of course, we needed a big correction. Of course, we needed an 80% drop because we rallied so fast. Bitcoin has not done that this time. In the last year, ever since September of last year, Bitcoin is up, like 80%. That is nothing that is going to warrant an 80% crash. So the days, in my opinion, of 77% bear markets are behind us unless Bitcoin somehow adds $5 trillion of market capitalization over the next few months and we blast off to $200,000 to $250,000 in an exceedingly short period of time. Otherwise, I don't think that's going to happen. So the worst case scenario in my book remains a drop back down to 90 to 100, where I will be buying as much Bitcoin as I can get my grubby little hands on. All right, with that longer term perspective in mind, let's take a look at the shorter term, because the shorter term, quite frankly, is kind of scary right now. And I'm not quite convinced that 107 is going to hold yet. You see, the reason for that is that Fibonacci retracement is one of, if not the most powerful forms of finding support and resistance other than just drawing support and resistance lines. It is extremely powerful and it is extremely predictive. And whenever a market is correcting, rallies and rejects here at the Fibonacci golden pocket, 0.618 to 0.65, it is generally an indicator that the level of support that the Fib was drawn off of is going to break. That's almost certainly what it means. And oftentimes what can end up happening is that the level at 0.618 on this original Fib becomes the 0.786. Now, that would require a drop down to 96,000, so that's probably not going to happen. But the point remains is that oftentimes when you hit 0.618 and you reject off of it and you fall straight back down to this level, it almost certainly means that this level is going to break. Now, you don't want to hear that. I know you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear that 107 is going to break, and I'm not totally convinced that it's going to, but I want to show you a few historical examples from history as to why it could happen. If we look back to the 2018 bear market, you're going to see something very similar happens here. We had a bottom and a top. 11,800 was the top of the Fibonacci here. 6,600 was the bottom of the Fibonacci here. We rejected off of the Fibonacci golden pocket, and then you can see that we dropped slightly below the original bottom that the Fibonacci was built off of here around 6,600. We then ended up seeing a very similar thing happen over here, where Bitcoin had a rejection here at the Fibonacci golden pocket. And then we dropped right back down to the level at this point at $5,800. Both of these events were very bearish for Bitcoin, and they actually ended up leading Bitcoin to breaking its support here at $6,000 and capitulating back down to $3,000, which with the benefit of hindsight was an incredible buying opportunity, and we bought down there. I am still holding Bitcoin that I bought and acquired through various different means at $3,000. And so I want to encourage you that if we do see these drops, if you have the time horizon to say, I'm just going to hold it for 5 or 10 years, take advantage of them. The further you are away from all-time high, the better the entry. And honestly, the fair market value of Bitcoin for a number of reasons that we'll discuss in future content, but just to run a few of them off, institutional reasons, stock market reasons, ETF inflow reasons, gold valuation reasons, M2 money supply reasons, historical precedent based on interest rates being cut, the quantitative tightening that's probably going to stop as monetary expansion kicks into full gear here in the next 6 to 12 months from the Federal Reserve. All of these different factors are going to send Bitcoin to a fair market value of $300,000 to $400,000 in the next several years. And so an entry down here is not something that you should be scared of. Let's say somehow we do go into a bear market, a $90,000 entry is still going to be an incredible entry when you fast forward even just a couple of years. So the two big takeaways I have for you is number one, unless we see a massive blow off top, we're not seeing a 77% bear market. Makes no sense. If 125 somehow was the all-time high for this bear market, for this bull market, a 77% drop would drop us back to $28,000. In what world does Bitcoin, after everything that has taken place in the last 3 years, trade at $28,000? That's a freaking joke. Maybe 70 or 75, but 28 is absolutely asinine. Now, on the other hand, if you saw Bitcoin go to $240,000, then that's where a 70% drop down to $75,000, or even, for example, a 57 to 60% drop down to $100,000 would make more sense. That's why I think the bear market bottom at this point in time, with where Bitcoin has gone over the last several years, is an absolute bottom of between $50,000 and $100,000. And so I'm not really too concerned about an entry below $100,000 when we're looking at historic lows if we were to drop down there. So again, all of that to say, I'm very confident about Bitcoin in the long term. In the short term, however, this rejection here does signal that this level is most likely going to be revisited. Best case, worst case, we might actually see a capitulation event beneath it. If we do, the good news is there are an enormous amount of buy orders between $100,000 and $107,000, and I would be one of those people buying as much Bitcoin as I possibly can get my hands on because I think it's going to be a historic entry. I acquired a absolute massive amount of Bitcoin right here, and then I acquired even a lot more Bitcoin over here. These are probably two of the largest acquisitions of Bitcoin I've ever done in my entire life, and I would love to get those levels again to acquire even more Bitcoin. So I am not concerned about this price. I am, however, thinking that we may not be done with the correction just yet. I think a drop down to 107 could happen, but I think we might not stay there for long. If we do drop down below it, we probably won't stay down there for long either. We could end up putting into place, basically, as you can see, an Elliott wave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 correction, maybe down to 100K. Worst case scenario. And if we did see 100K, then we're going to see an absolutely insane bull market that sends Bitcoin right back up to 125, which you can take advantage of because you get the low entries and you get a really easy market for a month or two to do some long trades in. And then from there, we would probably blast off to new all-time highs like 140 to 150, honestly, maybe even 180 or $200,000 within the next 3 to 6 months. While we should be preparing for a bear market, we should be preparing for a 4-year halving cycle bear market, I am not particularly convinced that you're going to see the same kind of 4-year halving cycle bear market that you've seen in the past. A large part of the reason for that is because Bitcoin has not gone parabolic. It has moved in a linear fashion so far in this market. So a massive capitulation down 80% makes significantly less sense. The last 2 bull markets saw Bitcoin go straight up banana mode, where Bitcoin just went vertical. Just took off like a rocket ship. I mean, for goodness sakes, we saw Bitcoin rally from $11,000 to $65,000, 500% in 176 days. We've seen nothing of the sort in this market. Nothing. So a bear market, if it does happen, and if it is a 4-year halving cycle bear market, you're probably going to see it be more like 45 to 60% deep at most, which is honestly basically the same thing as what we saw in the middle of the cycles back over here. 40% corrections were very, very normal. So a 40% correction being a bear market is really nothing to be concerned about. You would be seeing Bitcoin stabilizing a great deal over the course of 2026, setting some strong foundations for the long-term future. So, in conclusion, I'm still standing by my October 15th $130,000 price target. It's far enough out that I still think it can happen. In the next few days, if Bitcoin does break below 107, we will probably be updating that price target. So it is in danger. We're kind of on a yellow light with that price target right now, but I'm not ready to throw it out just yet. We hit our September 17th 118K price target. This is exactly right here. It's exactly where we hit it. So we'll see if our second price target of Bitcoin to 130 by October 15th occurs. Historically, October is an extremely bullish month moving into Q4, and so I'm very excited to see how that plays out. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to join our Discord server where you can get access to all kinds of absolutely amazing trading and also absolutely amazing memes, then make sure to sign up for 2bit with the link in the description box down below, who is the official sponsor of our Discord. You can get into our Discord for free by signing up for 2bit. All you have to do is go to the link down below, sign up, deposit $100, take a screenshot of your deposit on 2bit, send it to MalachiPats@CryptoJeb.com, who is our sales and community manager, and he will get you into the Discord server for free for a year. That is a $419 value that we're going to give to you for nothing because you signed up for the very best leverage trading platform in the game. 2bit is where I do all of my leverage trading exclusively. Very excited to be sponsored by them and working with them. Very good exchange. I wouldn't work with them if I didn't believe in them. It's my favorite exchange on the market, so make sure to sign up for 2bit, deposit $100, send that screenshot and email, get into the Discord server, and get these videos early. By the way, I don't know if I actually told YouTube this, but every time I shoot one of these videos, I upload them early. For example, this was on September 22nd. Today's video is fantastic. We'll be live at 2 p.m. Eastern. However, everybody in the first cohort gets it at 1:15, 3 hours and 45 minutes early. Every single day, I shoot these videos hours before they go out, and they go out immediately in the Discord server, and then hours later on YouTube. On average, you can get this video that you're watching right now up to 3 hours early because you were in the first cohort. You can pause and look at all this. I post it every single time. Got it 3 hours early that day, 3 hours early that day, an hour and a half early that day. As soon as these videos are done, they go out early in the first cohort. So if you want to get into the first cohort for free, get access to these videos early for free, costs you nothing. Sign up for 2bit, deposit $100, take a screenshot of your UID and your deposit, send it to MalachiPats@CryptoJeb.com, and then go ahead and get in for free. By the way, today's video is also brought to you by Stampseed. If you want to protect your seed phrases, make sure to do so by stamping them into titanium because fire is actually significantly more likely to take out your seed phrases than thieves. So you want to make sure that you're protecting your wealth that you've worked so hard for. So big shout out to Stampseed. Get 15% off with the coupon code JEB15 by going to Stampseed.com. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, stay tuned for more content. And before I go, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.